A mysterious gate suddenly appears in Ginza, Tokyo, through which mythological creatures led by men in Roman armor emerge and attack the people. Itami, a JSDF reservist who is attending a nearby Dujin convention, helps organizing the police to evacuate the civilians before the JSDF arrives to stop the invaders. For his actions, Itami is promoted to first lieutenant and celebrated as a national hero. The appearance of the gate and attack on Japanese civilians, dubbed the Ginza Incident, prompts the incumbent prime minister to take action by proclaiming that Japan will send a JSDF task force backed by the US to the special region, the world beyond the gate, to not only explore the new world but also capture and demand reparations from those responsible for the attack. After 3 months of preparation, the new prime minister sends off the JSDF task force, including Itami, on their mission to the special region. After finally arriving, the task force encounter an army waiting for them and prepares for battle. An army sent by the Empire to deal with the Japanese forces stationed at Alness Hill, where the gate is located. The Empire army is easily obliterated by the JSDF's modern artillery. Emperor Molt calls for the armies of the Empire's vassal states to attack, only for them to be defeated with massive casualties as well, a move planned by the Emperor to prevent the vassal states from taking advantage of the Empire's depleted military. While Emperor Molt decides to delay a possible attack on JSDF, Itami is assigned to lead the 3rd Recon Unit, created to survey the nearby cities and points of interest. After passing by the village of Koda, the 3rd Unit observes a massive fire dragon burning and destroying a settlement within the nearby forest. While looking for survivors, Itami finds an unconscious elf woman inside a well. Taking the elf with them, the 3rd Unit returns to the village of Koda, and upon learning of the fire dragon, the villagers decide to evacuate, assisted by the Japanese soldiers. The group, now including all the villagers, are later joined by 2 mages, Lele and her master El. Hoping to take advantage of the situation, a group of bandits decide to attack the villagers, only to be slaughtered by Rory, an apostle of the dark god and Roy. While escorting the refugees, Itami's party encounters Rory, who decides to accompany them as well. However, the fire dragon appears and attacks the convoy, killing numerous villagers until the 3rd Unit blows off one of its front legs with an anti-tank rocket, forcing it to retreat. After the 3rd Unit parts ways with the villagers, Itami decides to take the remaining refugees as well as Rory, the elf woman, and Lele back to Alness Hill. The 3rd Recon Unit returns to Alness Hill, now converted into an advanced JSDF base, and Itami obtains authorization to provide shelter to the refugees. Meanwhile, Princess Pina from the Empire learns more about the JSDF's exploits and decides to investigate them personally. Back at Alness, the refugees get used to their new lives among the Japanese soldiers. But for some reason, Tuka, the elf girl, keeps requesting supplies not only for herself, but for another unknown male not listed among the guests. Knowing that they cannot depend on the JSDF's charity forever, Lele points out that they can collect scales from the corpses of dragons killed by JSDF, which will fetch a good price in the local markets. Meanwhile, on the other side of the gate, the Japanese Diet requests Itami for an audience regarding the battle against the fire dragon. However, by the time the summons for Itami arrives, he has already left with Rory, Lele, Tuka, and the rest of the 3rd Unit to trade the collected dragon scales at the city of Italica, where Pina and her knights are also headed in search of further information about the JSDF. Itami's party arrives at Italica just as the city's forces, led by Princess Pina, repel an assault by an invading bandit force made up of deserters from the armies defeated at Alness. Knowing that her knights and the local militia lack the strength to keep holding off the bandits until help arrives, Pina finds herself in a predicament until she meets the 3rd Recon Unit. Upon being informed of the situation, Itami decides to help defend the city and agrees with Pina's plan of positioning himself and his soldiers on the least guarded side of the walls, the south gate, to act as a decoy. However, the enemy does not fall for their trap and launches an attack on the main force at the east gate instead. As the city's defenses are broken, the princess finds herself on the verge of despair. Rory, Itami, and 2 of his subordinates, Akira and Shino, head to Pina's location to help her men. Meanwhile, the JSDF sends a helicopter unit to assist the 3rd Recon Unit in defending Italica, which arrives just in time, blasting Wagner's Ride of the Valkyries from loudspeakers and annihilating the invaders with ease. After Lele sells the dragon scales and Itami has negotiated with Pina and the Italicans for rather trivial compensation, the 3rd Recon Unit departs back to Alness Hill only to encounter Pina's Order of the Rose Knights on their way. Upon discovering their identities as JSDF members, the Knights take Itami captive, unaware of the peace treaty he and Pina just established. In order to avoid further conflict, Itami orders his unit to leave without him instead of fighting, leaving himself at the Knights' mercy. Back at Italica, Pina reprimands her knights Bozes and Panache for capturing Itami, fearing that the JSDF will use the incident as an excuse to retaliate for breaking the treaty. As the formal family staff treat Itami's wounds, Rory, Lele, Tuka, and some of the 3rd Unit sneak back to Italica to rescue Itami, but find themselves welcomed by the formal maids and join Itami for a small socializing party. Meanwhile, Pina orders Bozes to sleep with Itami in the hopes of earning his forgiveness, but Bozes becomes angry and assaults Itami after seeing him enjoying himself and seemingly ignoring her. Appalled that Bozes might have antagonized Itami further, Pina and Bozes join the 3rd Recon Unit's trip back to Elnis Hill to personally apologize to Itami's superiors for Bozes' actions. While Pina and Bozes meet with Itami's commanding officer, Lieutenant General Hazama, with Lele as an interpreter, Itami invites Tuka to come with him to Japan to meet the Japanese Diet as a representative of the special region. The next day, Itami, Shino, and Akira accompany Rory, Lele, Tuka, Pina, and Bozes through the gate to Japan. Itami and his group arrive in Tokyo, where Pina and the other girls are awed by the city and its people. After meeting a public security agent, Itami, Rory, Lele, and Tuka head to the Japanese Diet, while Pina and Bozes meet with members of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to discuss the details for the upcoming peace talks. At the Japanese Diet, Itami, Rory, Lele, and Tuka are questioned by the chairwoman of the investigation committee on the Fire Dragon attack, who accuses the JSDF of failing to protect the refugees killed by the Fire Dragon. Rory, Lele, and Tuka defend the JSDF, telling of how the Japanese soldiers helped save many lives from the monster. Afterwards, both Itami's and Pina's groups reunite in the subway to escape from the press, as well as a mysterious group which seems to be targeting the Special Region girls. Due to a mole leaking their itinerary, Itami makes a change of plans and brings the group to stay with his ex-wife. Itami explains everything to his ex-wife Riza, who agrees to help him by taking Rory, Lele, and Tuka on a shopping trip the next day, while Akira accompanies Pina and Bozes to the library after both of them take an interest in boys' love manga from Riza. Meanwhile, Itami meets with his old friend, Defense Minister Teru, who instructs him to bring the Special Region guests to a hot spring inn guarded by the Japanese SFG. As Itami's group stays at the inn for some relaxation, 3 different Black Ops teams enter the area and battle with the SFG. While the SFG identifies 2 of the Black Ops operatives as Americans, the Japanese Prime Minister is blackmailed by the US President, who wants the SFG to stop attacking his Black Ops team so they can take the Special Region guests with them. The Prime Minister orders Teru to tell his men to stand down, but not before revealing that he will be resigning to void the president's leverage. As the 3 ops teams head to the inn, Itami encounters a drunken and aroused Rory. Rory's attempts to seduce Itami are interrupted by a phone call from Teru. The US Black Ops team arrives at the inn, only to encounter the 2 rival teams from Russia and China, leading to a 3-way firefight which Rory soon joins, ending with everyone besides Rory dead. After taking a van from the Russians, Itami's group heads back to Ginza, but worried that the foreign agents will attack again, Risa posts a message on the internet that the Special Region girls will be visiting the Ginza Memorial. As a result, a large crowd gathers at Ginza to meet the girls, hindering the foreign agents' plans to kidnap them. Public security is able to inconspicuously arrest all foreign agents on the scene, and after Shino publicizes the previous kidnapping attempts on live TV through her news reporter sister Nanami, the US, Chinese, and Russian leaders cancel the kidnapping operation. After saying goodbye to Risa and paying their respects at the Ginza Memorial, the Special Region girls return to the gate. Realizing the Empire's war with Japan will lead to its destruction, Pina makes plans to head back to the capital to arrange peace talks between both sides. 5 months since the gate's opening, the Alnis refugee camp has developed into a town and trading center for goods from Earth. At the imperial capital, Pina introduces the Japanese Ministry of Foreign Affairs' new ambassador to the Empire to Lord Cicero, one of the most important nobles within the Empire's pro-war faction, and obtains his cooperation with the peace talks in exchange for the release of his nephew, who is currently in Japan's custody as a prisoner of war. Back in Alnis, Tuka keeps wandering the city looking for her father and refusing to accept the fact that he is already dead. As Itami and his friends discuss their concern for Tuka in a tavern, Kurakawa claims that they must make her face the truth, but Itami objects, certain that they cannot be responsible for Tuka forever. Left alone with Rory, Itami keeps drinking with her until a dark elf woman by the name of Yao appears and, mistaking Rory for a child, reprimands Itami for giving her alcohol. With her plans to spend the night with Itami ruined, an annoyed Rory mischievously plays along with the dark elf's misunderstanding, forcing Itami to flee. The elf is unaware that Itami was one of the men in green she was looking for, whom she wants to ask for aid for her people who are attacked by the fire dragon. The next day, as she prepares to visit the JSDF's base at Alnus, Itami heads towards the imperial capital. Yao's initial attempts to ask the JSDF for help fail, as most of the soldiers know little of the local language, and she is arrested by the military police after attacking several thugs who mistake her for a prostitute. Millet, having improved her magic thanks to Earth's advanced scientific knowledge, is called by the JSDF to serve as Yao's interpreter. After learning her story, General Hazama tells Yao that he cannot help her, as her home Schwartz Forest is located in the Elb Kingdom, which is outside the borders of the Empire. As the Japanese are currently in peace talks with the Empire, sending troops over their border would mean a declaration of war and reignite conflict. With Yao devastated at the news, some soldiers sympathize with her, and Lieutenant Akira suggests that Yao should ask Itami for help. Elsewhere, Itami and his men deliver goods from Earth to Pina and Hamilton, as part of their plan to win over more nobles to seek peace with Japan. Before leaving, Itami gives Pina a Yaoi Dujin translated by Bozes and Panache, which, unknown to him, contains newspaper clippings of his previous heroic actions. As Itami heads back to base hoping to achieve peace between both sides, Lele narrates that the war is far from over. In the imperial capital, a private party hosted by Pina is attended by a group of senators and their families led by Lord Cicero, who, after seeing the Third Recon's weapons demonstrations, realizes the futility of fighting the Japanese and seeks to negotiate for peace. However, Crown Prince Zorzal, Pina's elder brother, learns of the meeting and rides with his entourage to confront the senators for treason. Itami's scouts spot the prince approaching, and the Third Recon helps the senators escape undetected before he arrives. At Akusho, the capital's red light district, Mary joins the JSDF team stationed there, using her training as a nurse to aid the locals who show up at the outpost. Meanwhile, Yao tries to learn about the people that are important to Itami from a local, while Itami, Shino, and Akira stay at Pina's palace. Back at the Akusho outpost, the demi-human prostitutes warn Mary that they feel an earthshake is coming. Recognizing it as a sign similar to how animals on Earth can detect earthquakes before they occur, the commanding officer at the outpost warns the soldiers in the special region to evacuate the civilians before the earthquake begins. Pina invites Sugawara, Itami, Shino, and Akira to meet with her father, the Emperor, in the Imperial Palace to advise them how to handle earthquakes. However, Zorzal also arrives to warn his father of another earthquake foretold by his slave Noriko, who is a Japanese citizen captured by the Empire forces. Angered with Zorzal's cruel treatment of Noriko, Itami punches him and rescues the girl. Zorzal's bodyguards try to attack, only to be gunned down by Shino. Itami and Shino torture Zorzal for information about other Japanese captives, only to be stopped by Tule, Zorzal's another slave. Sugawara warns the Emperor there will be repercussions if the kidnapped Japanese citizens are not returned to the Japanese before leaving, and the Japanese launch an airstrike at the Imperial Senate building as a further message to make peace. While Tule treats Zorzal wounds, Zorzal's younger brother Diabo learns their father wants to make Zorzal his heir, as he believes that he can easily control Zorzal from the shadows once he abdicates. Meanwhile, Noriko arrives at the JSDF Alnus base, hoping to return to Japan, unaware that her parents were killed during the Ginza incident. Elsewhere, Tuka continues to fruitlessly search for her father. At the imperial capital, Diabo and Pino learn that Zorzal has been officially made heir to the throne. Unknown to them, Zorzal is being manipulated by Tula, who seeks revenge against the Empire and plans its destruction by the JSDF by having Noriko killed and Pina framed for it. At Alnus, Yanagita asks Itami to head to the Elb Kingdom to kill the Fire Dragon, but Itami refuses as he will endanger his soldiers' lives. However, Tuka has gone insane and now believes Itami is her father after Yao forced her to face the fact that her father was killed by the Fire Dragon. Yao reveals that she is desperate for Itami's help to save her people, even if it means hurting those close to him. Itami pretends to be Tuka's father for the time being, but Tuka still continues to slip further into madness. After having a talk with the disguised King Duran of Elb, who is recuperating at Alnus, Itami finally decides to help Tuka and kill the Fire Dragon, which will end her delusions. Rather than going to the Imperial capital with his men, Itami departs with group in a Humvee with supplies provided by Yanagita. The warrior Bunny, who works at the bar at Alnus refugee town, receives orders from her masters, the formal clan, that she is to assassinate Noriko. When General Hazama learns of Itami's quest to Elb, he forms a task force to help him fight the Fire Dragon, and Yanagita and King Duran make a deal to allow the JSDF to cross the Elb Kingdom. The warrior Bunny attempts to kill Noriko fails when Yanagita discovers them, which ends with both of them injured fighting each other. The JSDF investigates the assassination attempt and, with help from the Formal clan, learns the Formal clan butler forged the letter under orders from Zorzel's faction, and to gain more information, one of Itami's soldiers, Furuta Hitoshi, goes undercover as a chef in the capital, where he gains Zorzel's favor. Meanwhile, Itami's party finally reaches Yao's village. While Yao goes to greet her people, Itami and the others are surrounded by a group of dark elf guards only for the fire dragon to appear. After driving the fire dragon off and meeting the elders of the dark elves, Itami and his group heads to the fire dragon's nest in the mountains with a group of dark elf volunteers. With Rory guarding the entrance of the nest, Itami and his group install a fragmentation bomb beneath the fire dragon's nest, using C4 and weapons to kill the fire dragon by surprise. However, the fire dragon arrives and kills most of the dark elves. As the battle rages, Tuka finally accepts that her father is dead and uses lighting magic, which ignites the C4, killing the fire dragon. As the survivors escape from the mountain, they find Rory heavily injured after fighting Giselle, a rival apostle. Giselle reveals she was the one that woke the fire dragon, which led to its rampage as she was using the fire dragon's 2 hatchlings as help to capture Rory for her patron, the underworld goddess. Giselle's dragons chase after Itami and his group only for the JSDF task force to arrive and kill the dragons, forcing Giselle to retreat. Itami is punished for going fighting the fire dragon, but later is rewarded by various people for his heroic actions and is given a new mission to scout for resources with his group. They head to the magic city of Rondel, where Lele plans to hold a presentation to her fellow mages, which, if successful, will gain her the rank of master. Later, they encounter Lele's older sister Arpeggio and her mentor Mimosa. Meanwhile, in the imperial capital, peace talks between Japan and the Empire officially begin, much to Zorzel's anger since the assassination attempt on Noriko and framing it on Pina have failed. As everyone celebrates the fire dragon's death, the Emperor is pleased to learn that Lele, an imperial citizen, was also involved in helping defeat the dragon. However, the Emperor suddenly falls ill after drinking wine secretly poisoned under Tula's orders. With the Emperor bedridden, Zorzel takes over the throne and declares his intent to avenge the Empire's humiliation by the Japanese. With the imperial capital in curfew, the JSDF forces in Akusho are trapped and the Japanese ambassadors put under house arrest. Pina gets angry when she learns that Zorzel has the pro-peace faction arrested and plans to attack the Japanese. Meanwhile, Diabo has run away to seek help from others to overthrow Zorzel. In Rondel, Mimosa reveals something interesting to Itami and the others about the gate. Every few centuries or millenniums, the gods of the special region would open a portal of the gate to another world at Alnus, through which the races of those worlds would come and settle in, explaining why there are many different types of races living here. When Arpeggio learns that Lele has outachieved her in any conceivable field, including finding a romantic interest with Itami, the sisters have a magic duel to settle their dispute. An assassin tries to kill Lele at the end of the match, but is eliminated by Gray. Gray and another Rose Knight, Shandy, reveal to Itami and his group that the assassin was sent by Zorzel due to his jealousy of Lele's fame of defeating the Flame Dragon, and the two of them came to protect them under Pina's orders. As Itami and his group continue to evade Zorzel's killers, Zorzel's secret police continue to arrest the pro-peace faction for treason throughout the capital. Despite this, the Japanese are ordered by their government to not get involved, including refusing sanctuary for the pro-peace faction. Marquis Cassel seeks refuge with the Thierry family, only for the Oprichnina to attack their home, forcing their daughter Sherry to help Cassel escape, while her parents sacrifice themselves to stop them. Sherry and Cassel head to the Jade Palace, which has become the Japanese embassy, to seek asylum, as the palace is under the Rose Knight's protection and a treaty prevents the Empire from setting foot there. Despite Sherry hoping Sugawara, whom she sees as her future husband, to help them, Sugawara sticks to his country's orders to not get involved. However, when the Oprichnina arrive and arrest Cassel and Sherry, Sugawara changes his mind and takes Sherry under his custody, thus starting a brutal battle between the Rose Knights and the Oprichnina. The Rose Knights manage to repel the Oprichnina and free Senator Cassel, but this leads to an escalation of tension between Japan and the Empire. The minister and other members of the government suggest to evacuate the Japanese delegation from the Jade Palace, but Prime Minister Morita refuses to give the green light since representatives from other nations and the media are currently visiting the special region and the Alnus camp. So a demonstration of force or having no control of the situation could have bad diplomatic consequences for Japan. However, things turn bad rapidly when Zorzel has Pina under arrest for her refusal to order the Rose Knights to let his soldiers enter the palace and orders his army to put the embassy under siege, which finally drives Morita into authorizing the JSDF's deployment to evacuate the ambassadors and political refugees. Meanwhile, in Rondel, Itami and the others manage to neutralize another assassination attempt against them, and prepare a plan to capture the Piper, a leader of the assassins sent to kill them. The attempts of Imperial army to break through the embassy are repelled by the Rose Knights, but with a massive difference in numbers, it's just a matter of time until the Jade Palace falls. Meanwhile, in Rondel, Shandy discovers that the Piper is planning another assassination attempt against Lele, so Itami and the others prepare themselves to stop him. As expected during Lele's presentation, 2 more assassins try to kill her, but they're both thwarted by Itami and the spectators. However, at the final moment, Shandy tries to stab Lele, but is saved thanks to the armor under her dress. Interrogated about her betrayal, Shandy reveals that the Piper forced her to kill Lele in order to save Pina, who has been formally accused of high treason. As a result, Itami and the others decide to turn back to the Imperial capital, while the JSDF prepare themselves to launch a massive operation against the capital to break the Jade Palace's siege. The JSDF begins their assault at the Imperial capital, rescuing the pro-peace faction from prison and the Rose Knights and ambassadors from the Jade Palace. As the JSDF evacuate the refugees, Bozes and Beefeater attempt to rescue Pina from the Imperial Palace, but are forced to retreat with the evacuating JSDF due to the Imperial army's numbers. As Itami and his group attempt to reach the capital quickly, Two-Leg goads Zorzal to continue fighting as he can still employ Pina as a hostage. Itami and the others reach the Imperial capital, where they receive help from the rest of the 3rd Recon to rescue and escape with Pina, Hamilton, and the Emperor. Meanwhile, Pina is dragged into the throne room to be judged by Zorzal for being a traitor, only to be stopped by the arrival of Itami, Lele, and Rory. Despite Zorzal having a giant ogre fight them, the ogre is easily killed and Zorzal is forced to give up Pina after Itami threatens to kill Zorzal if he continues harming his friends. With their targets rescued, Itami and the rest escape from the Imperial capital and the Imperial army is destroyed by modern weapons. After recovering and realizing that Zorzal will never make peace with Japan, the Emperor decides to make Pina his heir, even though it will lead to a civil war between his children. Zorzal and his supporters are forced to leave the Imperial capital, with Zorzal vowing revenge against the Japanese, and he is traumatized for life by guns. Even though achieving her goal of destroying the Empire, Two-Leg is seen crying. 10 days later in Italica, Pina is crowned as Crown Princess of the Empire, vowing to bring peace between the Empire and Japan. Itami skips Pina's coronation to attend a Doujin convention, but much to his frustration, Lele, Tuka, and Rory have followed him, causing a ruckus with the crowd and them being taken into protective custody by the police.